So hey guys, how are you all? Welcome to So we are back with a brand new movie on what if Naruto entered a new world of apocalypse and harem with Kyoko and Saya, but before we start, be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video. Now let's begin the story. The fourth Shinobi War had ended, Naruto didn't think it would be possible, but he was shocked by the cages. When they all agreed to put aside their differences in order to work together, he was shocked, especially since Inoki that Tsuchikage had a deep hatred towards Naruto and his father. However, Inoki shocked him when he realized his anger, well justified, was misplaced at the same time, since nobody should have to pay for what their parents did. Especially one whose parents were already long gone. After they successfully sealed Kaguya away, Sasuke revealed his intentions of wanting to kill all the cages and then rule over the world as its one and only ruler. Naturally, Naruto couldn't let that happen. The two fought with everything they had in the Valley of the End, causing destruction without a care on Sasuke's part while Naruto tried to minimize the damage. The two kept fighting and it gradually progressed, the two even used their perfect Susanoo or tailed beast mode. Gradually, the fight was beginning to climax with the two beginning to clash for a final time. Naruto came a shout full of rage and anger. The owner of this voice was Sasuke Uchiha, the last Uchiha and a traitor to the village of Konohagakure. He had jet black hair and one eye in the form of his eternal Manjutsu Sharingan, while the other was in the form of the Rinnegan. He was wearing dark blue pants with a cloth that hung over them, which was secured by a purple rope, which is common amongst followers of Orochimaru. He was also wearing a pair of black sandals and a gray, zippered, high-collar shirt with short sleeves and blue wrist warmers. However, currently, said clothes were covered in rips and tears from his fight. Sasuke came another shout, however, unlike the first, this one was full of pain along with rage. The owner of this voice was Naruto Uzumaki, Jinchuriki to the nine-tailed fox, and shinobi of Konoha. He had wild, spiky sun-kissed hair and cerulean blue eyes with 3 whisker marks on each of his cheeks. He was wearing a pair of bright orange pants and black sandals, with a black and orange jacket, along with his forehead protector. Though, like Sasuke, his whole outfit was covered in rips and tears from all the fighting. The two were now running towards each other with their respective signature attacks. Sasuke was wielding his Chidori in his hand, while Naruto was charging with his Rasengan. The two were charging at each other, one with the intent to kill, while the other had the intent to capture. Once the two were close enough, they launched their attacks while shouting. Chidori. Rasengan. The two attacks clashed against each other, with Naruto staring into the Sasuke's eyes, and in that moment Naruto realized that Sasuke would never give up the rage and hate. Naruto knew that Sasuke would never quit his path to become the ruler of the world. So with that thought, Naruto began channeling more chakra into his attack. However, instead of overpowering Sasuke's attack, it had an unexpected effect. Due to the amount of clashing chakra, instead of creating an orb of energy like the two have previously experienced, this time, it was just an explosion due to the amount of power. Said explosion blew the two apart with Naruto slamming into the wall of the valley, while Sasuke landed on the other side of the riverbed. Sasuke flinched as he felt an intense pain in his left arm. When he looked, he saw that he was missing his left arm and was bleeding out. Angry at the injury, he turned back to Naruto, only to have his eyes widened at what he witnessed, and due to his Sharingan, he would forever remember what he saw. Laying against the wall, in the indent created by his body, was Naruto. However, the only difference was the long broadsword blade sticking out of his torso. Blue. Naruto coughed up a glob of blood while he had wide eyes. Everything appeared to be in slow motion, as he couldn't understand what was happening. 1 minute, him and Sasuke were fighting, him to bring Sasuke back to the village, with Sasuke fighting to kill him. Then all of a sudden, a long blade was sticking out of him. Finally, everything went black. However, what Naruto saw was very different for Sasuke, as right before Naruto's eyes closed, Naruto was covered in a column of blinding red light. It was in that moment that Sasuke finally understood why Naruto constantly fought him. Naruto wasn't trying to stop him, he was trying to save his friend from himself. In his final moments, Naruto had managed to bring Sasuke back to the light. In between dimensions. Floating through the space between dimensions was the beat-up blonde with the sword still sticking through his chest. Only now, the rest of the sword can be seen, showing it was a massive claymore with a heavy double-edged blade, notched on both sides near the tip. The pommel was a single spike with the guard being a skeletal design with skulls on either side. One looked like a human skull, while the other was that of a demon's with horns coming out of its eyes, with both leading to a rib cage, from where the blade emerges. The crossguard looked to be the bones of the arms, but they were currently folded in against the ribs. It's the rebellion sword in its dormant form and is the Devil May Cry 5 version. While normally, floating around empty space with a sword through your chest would mean you're dead, this was not the case. For Naruto, he wasn't dead, he was actually inside of his own mind, stuck between life and death. Naruto's mind. While his body was slowly dying, Naruto was walking around his mindscape, though he didn't recognize it. Instead of the sword that was his mindscape that he had been planning on changing, what he saw was what looked like a broken cemetery, with the water changing to look like blood. He accidentally touched a pillar, causing it to crumble and sink into the water like a rock, making him wonder why he wasn't sinking. And Devil May Cry 3 Demon World. So, I finally get to meet the guy who found my sword. Naruto turned towards the voice, only to see something strange. Before him was a statue of what looked to be an angel, though it was broken. Its wings were above the head, along with its arms, like it was trying to reach towards the heavens, but that wasn't what caught his attention. What caught Naruto's attention was the silver-haired guy that was perched on one of the angel's wings. The guy was wearing a faded red trench coat and has a washed-out look, along with a skull. He wears a black Henley t-shirt with 3 buttons with the sleeves reaching his elbows, where it shows torn details. He was also wearing black driving gloves with white bandages. He also wore a pair of black jeans with a black belt with golden accents and brown boots. He also had a beard. Naruto blinked in confusion at the strange man before asking, "Who are you and where are we?" The stranger stood up before he disappeared, just as Naruto heard. Naruto turned around, surprised to see the man was now behind him. The man smiled at Naruto's shock and surprise, but continued talking, "My name's Dante, and we are currently in a mix of your mind and the inner world of rebellion. I'm actually still surprised that someone managed to find my sword, though I didn't expect someone to actually get stabbed by it. Especially through the back, it'll be a pain in the ass to remove it from there. Like having an itch on your back in the one spot you just can't reach." The now known Dante muttered, though Naruto interrupted him, "Hold on, sword, you mean to tell me the thing that is currently stabbed through my chest is goddamn sword?" Dante simply smiled and said, "That's right. The sword's name is Rebellion, and after so long, I was beginning to think no one would find it, especially after it got buried under all the rocks and earth, but hey, talk about a 1 in a million chance, huh?" Naruto looked at Dante for a second before continuing to look around and asks, "So, what happens now?" "Well, normally, this is the part where you die," Dante said with a lazy grin, "that is unless we do something." That got Naruto's attention as he asked, "What do you mean?" Dante chuckled before he said, "Well kid, you got 2 choices. On one hand, you can become a half-devil from my power and live, or on the other hand, you can deny my offer and try to survive on your own." Naruto then asked, "Wait, half-devil? What do you mean, half-devil?" Dante gave Naruto a grin as he began explaining. He explained almost everything from his parents' history, his father sealing the demon world using his power and a sword. He then explained about him and his brother, along with who they were, what they were, along with his powers, though he left out how he became powerful, as he wanted the kid to experience things for himself. After hearing Dante's story, Naruto was amazed at the half-devil, and yet, the man, instead of wanting to be brought back, wanted to help Naruto instead. Naruto had a serious yet determined look on his face as he said, "Alright Dante, here's my answer." This decision would forever change Naruto's life. Time skip. In Fujimi Academy, sitting at a desk, his feet on the small table while leaning the chair back, with a study book in hand was a silver-haired blue-eyed young man, trying to stay focused on whatever the teacher was saying. However, despite all his attempts, it was still very difficult to listen to the boring-ass teacher drone on about the current lesson. The young man was currently wearing the school's uniform, though he left his jacket and white button-up shirt undone, showing his burnt orange t-shirt underneath. This young man was Naruto Uzumaki, the legacy of Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki. However, ever since he was given Dante's power, he also became a legacy of Sparta, since when Dante gave Naruto his power, it changed his whole body structure, essentially making him Dante's reincarnation. Which is the very reason why his hair changed color and style. A silver-white version of Cloud Strife's hair. Thanks to his Uzumaki genes adapting to the devil powers, the transformation went off without a hitch. Though it did hurt like a bitch, once he was done, he wound up in this world. Now he has to suffer a boring lifestyle, but at least it was relaxing. Naruto was then broken from his thoughts as the school's bell rang, signaling that school has now ended. Naruto closed his book before kicking off from the desk and put away his schoolwork in his backpack when he put it on the desk. Naruto also picked up a guitar case he had with him before heading for the door. However, as he was leaving, Naruto had to bend down slightly when exiting the door since he was slightly taller than the other students and didn't want his guitar case hitting the door. With that, he exited the school and headed for the gates. He was about to turn left when he heard Naruto. Turning around, he was greeted by the sight of a girl with orange eyes and long pink hair and 2 ponytails running up to him while smiling a toothy grin. "Where are you going? I thought you'd be coming back to the mansion with me," the girl said while looking up to the tall, silver-haired teen. Naruto gave a tired sigh as he said, "Sorry Saya-chan, but I'm going on a job and won't be back until late tonight, possibly tomorrow, and I need to get changed for it. I'll try to let you or Yuriko-chan know either when I'm done and if I'm getting home tonight or just coming straight here afterwards. Besides, you wouldn't like it, it'll be boring for you." Hearing his response, Saya just gave a huff while crossing her arms under her F-cup breasts, making them look bigger, while she said with a frustrated tone, "You idiot, you're supposed to be coming home more." Smiling, Naruto places his arm around Saya and hugs her to his side, causing her to blush as he says, "Sorry Saya-chan. Tell you what, if you want, I'll make it up to you tomorrow by taking you out to get a strawberry sundae. How does that sound?" Saya, still blushing, pushes him away before stuttering, "DD don't hold me out like that." She turns away from him, trying to hide her blush. Why you promised to take out for ice cream?" she asks in a shy tone. This made Naruto chuckle slightly as he said, "You should know me by now, Saya-chan. I always keep my promises." Once he had satisfied Saya's interest, Naruto went to his van, a gift from Saya's mother, Yuriko Takagi. Turns out, it was Yuriko who had found him after he landed in this world, which he is constantly thanking Kami for landing on his front, which pushed the sword out. The moment he landed was when Yuriko was strolling through her gardens, and while she may not have seen where he came from, she sure as hell saw the horrible state his clothes were in, burn marks, rips, tears, worn out, blood-stained. She knew these were all telltale signs Naruto had been in a fight. She took care of her husband enough times to recognize the signs. Being the kind-hearted woman she was, Yuriko helped Naruto, and after a few months, Naruto sorta became a handyman for her, but he didn't mind seeing as he owed her for helping him. Though, he supposed that by doing this, he sorta became like Dante, while Yuriko was basically his Morrison, assigning him missions. She was worried for him at first, but it eventually turned out fine, since after facing her husband in a sword fight, they realized that Naruto was a lot stronger than he looked. Though, it did come as a bit of a surprise to the couple when he could carry such a large sword with ease, along with the explanation that rebellion was a family heirloom. Which wasn't really a lie, since Naruto became Dante's reincarnation. After that, Naruto gained a few gifts, one being a twofer, which was a pair of customized handguns, one being black and the other silver, which he named Ebony and Ivory, after Dante's own guns. Second was a van, though it wasn't just any old van, seeing as it was made using the same military-grade armor and protection as tanks. Meaning he could slam into several cars if he wanted without a bit of damage. He also put a blue neon sign on the side, with it saying "Devil May Cry." Naruto had explained that it was in memory of his family's shop, along with the inside being just as protected as the outside for everything to be protected and powerful enough to even withstand an EMP blast. Thankfully, Saya's parents helped him out with the paperwork and getting him a license to drive as well as have his weapons, provided he keeps them out of sight from civilians. Anyways, after he got to his van, Naruto changed out of his uniform. He put on a pair of black combat boots and jeans, a blue formal vest, which was now a customized bulletproof vest thanks to Yuriko, and a red coat and best buckle resembling Dante's coat, along with military-grade gloves. The boots and jeans are Nero's with the vest being Virgil's, all from Devil May Cry 5. Stretching out his body, Naruto couldn't help but say, "Man, those uniforms are the worst. Leaving me all stiff, though, that could from sitting at a desk all day long. Whatever, anyways, time to get to work." Opening the van door, since his current job wasn't that far, Naruto decided to walk, with his guitar case on his back and his guns hidden under his coat at the back of his hips. As he was walking, the day had ended and the night was now upon him and nobody was out anymore. At the moment, he was walking along the riverbank, where he could feel something wasn't right. Naruto went down the grass, heading towards the shallow river, when his senses suddenly blurred to life. Naruto sensed something heading his way, so he quickly turned and sliced the object, which turned out to be a motorbike, with rebellion which he had summoned to his hand from the guitar case. As the two halves of the bike were skidding behind him, Naruto realized it was either a distraction or an attempt at a surprise attack, as he sees who is responsible for throwing the bike. Charging towards him was a tall, winged humanoid demon with two rigid horns and glowing purple eyes. Its entire body seemed to be covered in dark gray metallic armor, with two large wings hanging around its shoulders. In its hand was an extremely large sword that appeared to be made of 4 distinctive blades that had serrated edges with a hollow core that appeared to be glowing purple as purple lightning covered the blade. It then swung its lightning-covered blade towards Naruto's head. Clang. In the blink of an eye, Naruto had vanished, causing the sword to get jabbed into the ground. Meanwhile, in the distance, Naruto could be seen with rebellion resting on his shoulder walking around lazily while saying, "So, you're the one that Yuriko was worried about, though she probably had no clue as to who or what you were, but you've certainly been a bad little demon." Apparently, Dante's powers weren't the only thing Naruto had inherited, as he also appeared to have gained a bit of Dante's cockiness, though, I must say, it's surprising that a demon would show up here of all places. Especially since this is supposed to be a different world altogether, so that begs the question, how'd you get here? The demon merely stayed silent, causing Naruto to continue, not much of a talker, huh? Well, maybe I can help loosen your tongue. Pulling out ivory, Naruto exclaimed, let's rock. Naruto fired his gun, but the demon simply blocked the bullet by expanding one of its wings. Naruto's eyes widened at that, but he didn't have much time to sit around, as the demon disappeared in a flash of purple before appearing in front of Naruto, ready to strike. Naruto brought up rebellion to block the attack, but didn't count on the amount of strength the demon would put behind the attack, so he was blown back. As he flew back, he landed on his back, sliding along the ground until he managed to kip himself to his feet. Well, you got a bit of muscle there yourself, don't ya? Naruto said with a smirk, this is going to be fun. With that, the two charged at each other, swords at the ready before they swung their swords, beginning the fight. Naruto went for an overhead slash, while the demon slashed its sword upwards, both clashing against each other as they fought. Suddenly the demon jumped back, before launching balls of purple lightning at Naruto, getting his eyes to widen before he began dodged, though it came as a surprise when the last two changed course and began following him. This surprise caused Naruto to react too late, causing him to get hit by the two balls of lightning. Ugh. Naruto screamed as he was struck by the balls of lightning, sending him flying again before he hit the ground. Naruto's body was twitching and flinching due to all the electricity and lightning coursing through his body right now. He weakly looked up before rolling out of the way when the demon tried stabbing him with its sword. Naruto then got up before swapping his sword for his guns and began firing his guns at a rapid speed. He also mentally thanked Dante for placing the plans to his guns in his head, allowing him to modify them to run off of bullets made from his demon energy. Luckily, they looked just like regular bullets so it wouldn't arouse suspicion, especially since the casings would disappear shortly after hitting the ground. Anyways, Naruto just kept firing his guns, but the demon just expanded its wing again to block all the bullets, kinda pissing Naruto off. Things just got worse when the demon disappeared before reappearing behind Naruto and swung its sword, which was covered in electricity. Naruto swung his sword as well to defend against the strike, but he was suddenly launched back when an explosion of electricity occurred, electrocuting him. Naruto was huffing and puffing as he was getting tired and the demon was showing any signs of slowing down. It didn't help that he was on the verge of losing consciousness from all the electricity or that the demon was cheating a little bit by using its wings as a shield to block all of his bullets. I didn't think it would be this strong. What kind of demon is this? Naruto mentally questioned as he had never heard of a demon being this strong before. Naruto quickly aimed ebony at the demon, however, due to his tired state, Naruto wasn't quick enough and was kicked in the face by the demon. This caused Naruto to also lose his grip on rebellion, causing it to fly into the air. The demon, seeing the sword, grabbed it out of the air before quickly appearing before Naruto and stabbing him through his heart. With it believing to have defeated its opponent, the demon huffed before it began moving away, in search of other humans to destroy. As it began to walk away, Naruto's body suddenly began to pulse, beating like a heartbeat. Feeling something happening, the demon stopped before turning back to the teen to see what was happening. Suddenly, the sword's guard and jaws opened up, along with the spike of the pommel opening to reveal several spikes. Then, there was a blast of energy that threw the blade into the air, causing the demon to follow the sword, completely missing the fist that suddenly connected with its face, sending the demon flying back. Causing it to bounce across the river before hitting the bank on the other side. Grunting in pain, the demon looked towards Naruto, where it saw white aura pulsing around his body with each step he took, and his breathing was heavy. The demon, not wanting to give Naruto the chance to do whatever he was doing, vanished before appearing behind Naruto, with its sword in mid-swing, ready to take off Naruto's head. However, before it could land the attack. Erg. Naruto gave out a powerful roar as he released a powerful blast of demonic energy, sending the demon away, while it was dragging its feet in the ground to slow itself down. When the demon looked back, it saw, standing in Naruto's place, was a humanoid devil. The devil somewhat resembling Dante's devil form, however, instead of red, the scales were burnt orange, along with a pair of horns coming out of its forehead and were brushed back, almost resembling an angry animal. And imagine Kurama's ears, but as horns, since we need some type of connection to Kurama. Before the lightning demon could make a move, the now transformed Naruto vanished, before a large gash appeared on the demon's body, causing it to stumble back, clutching its chest, while part of its face landed near the one part of the sliced motorbike. Appearing behind the demon was Naruto in his devil form with rebellion in hand, showing he had sliced the demon. Naruto turned back, only to have his now glowing red eyes widen when he saw the body of a naked blonde-haired woman inside the demon. I see, you need a host in order to survive. Naruto said, with his voice sounding much deeper than before. Naruto then looked towards where the bike was and saw that the piece he sliced off had merged with the bike. Naruto then smirked and exclaimed, in that case, let's see if I can trim the fat off you. With that, Naruto charged forward and began to rapidly slice the demon apart, causing more pieces to fly off, where they were merging with the two bike halves. However, as the pieces merged, some of them were becoming red due to the leftover chakra from Kurama. As he kept slicing, the two halves of the bike suddenly began floating in the air, before in a flash, the two halves combined together to form a heavily armored demonic-looking bike with large, serrated spikes sticking out from the sides of the front tires. An Devil Arm. Cavalier, R. Naruto then stopped slicing as looked at the demon to see the woman sliding out. He quickly moved towards her and caught her, preventing her from hitting the ground. Though, right as he caught her, his transformation ended, leaving Naruto beyond exhausted as he groaned out, damn it. Dante never told me I have another transformation or that it would leave me this exhausted afterwards. Naruto was then broken from his thoughts when a demonic roar resounded through the area. Naruto turned and in front of him was the new bike and was in awe at how it looked before he began to hear sirens. Having no doubt the police would try to question him, which he wouldn't be able to answer, Naruto moved towards the bike with a smirk as he looked at the woman in his arms before saying, I don't know who you are, but you can rest at my place, then when you wake up, you can tell who you are along with what's going on. With that, Naruto climbed onto the devil arm before making sure the woman was secure and started it up. With an exclamation of, let's ride. Naruto took off down the street back to his van, leaving the cops to wonder on what happened at the river. A few streets later. Humming up to his van, Naruto slowed to a stop before picking up the unknown woman and getting off the devil arm, letting it disappear and become a part of his arsenal. As quick as he could, considering he was dead tired and ready to pass out, Naruto entered the van before placing the woman on the sofa and covering her with a blanket. He then moved to the front seats and sat down in the driver's seat before checking the time. Seeing that it was almost 2 o'clock in the morning, Naruto rubbed his face before groaning out, alright, I'm gonna have a nice hot shower, clean the blood off my clothes, then I'll move my van to the school parking lot. Since maybe that way, I'll actually get up for school. With that, Naruto took his shower before using his demonic energy to clean the blood off his clothes and repair them, which he was getting better at doing. He then got in the driver's seat, turned on his van, and began making his way to the school's parking lot. Once he got there, Naruto parked his van before stretching himself out as he groaned out, you what, after everything that happened earlier, maybe I'll just skip tomorrow and sleep here. Yeah, that sounds good. Besides, I doubt anything major will happen. With his mind made up, Naruto reclined his chair, put his feet up on the dashboard and went to sleep. It happened fairly quickly since his body was begging for sleep, especially after unlocking his new devil form. Next day. Due to Naruto parking at the school's parking lot, he was unfortunately woken up by the school's bell. After rubbing his eyes, Naruto stretched his body before realizing, oh yeah, I should let Saya-chan and Yuriko-chan know that I'm okay and finish the job. Though, I'm confused as to why she wants me to call her that. With that in mind, Naruto quickly sent a message to Saya and Yuriko, letting them know that he was safe and sound before getting up. Naruto moved to the back of the van before he began making some coffee and toast. As he was drinking his coffee, he looked at the lady to see her still sleeping. He figured she must be exhausted after whatever happened to her, but he also couldn't wait forever for her to wake up since he needed to find out what happened. So, with his coffee still in hand, he moved to her and began to nudge her while saying, hey, come on, I need you to wake up. The woman merely groaned in annoyance as she wanted more sleep, but the bell gained her attention as she began sitting up while rubbing her eyes and saying, come on, just let me sleep. It feels like I've just been tossed around in a fight. Opening her eyes a little bit, she sees an unknown person staring right at her. Quickly covering herself with a blanket with one hand, she charged the other with yellow lightning. Seeing her hand, Naruto just chuckled as he said, well, I guess that explains the demon suit's lightning abilities. She watched as he moved over to the coffee pot before pouring himself some more and pouring a cup for her, as well as why you were inside the suit to begin with. He finished with a lazy smile before he then moved back over to her and passed her the cup, with her slowly taking it after dispersing the lightning, seeing as, well, she was suspicious of the kid before her, she didn't want to seem ungrateful or rude. He then took another sip of coffee, with her seeing that it was safe, she had some herself, being incredibly thankful for the caffeine. Then she remembered what he said and had a small flashback, seeing the smile on his face reminded her of a certain demon hunter. Along with the words, demon suit, ringing a few bells in her head. She then asked, what are talking about? What demon suit? Who are you? Naruto just kept smiling his lazy smile before saying, we got a lot to talk about. Then he began a lengthy explanation with him fighting in his old world, finding Dante's sword, rebellion. Before moving to his conversation with Dante, him accepting Dante's power, essentially becoming his reincarnation, to his fight against the demon and finding her in it, and him working for someone who helped him in this world. Trish, she had revealed herself sometime during the explanation, was completely shocked by everything she had just heard. Her friend was long gone, having passed away in another world. Leaving his sword for another to find, leading to her talking to Naruto, who was not only Dante's legacy, but also a half-devil just like him. And, it was because of the lightning demon suit she was in, that helped him awaken his devil form. Trish groaned as she rubbed her face in frustration with her hand and said, well, this is just great. Me and Lady go out of our way to go looking for that lazy slacker, since we didn't want to pay for the place, no matter how cool it was. Found a portal to hopefully look for him, only to all of a sudden blackout. Then before I knew it, I wake up here, just perfect. Naruto, with his cup in the sink since he was done drinking coffee, rubbed his chin as he said, if I had to take a guess from what you said, I would say that when you entered the portal, you somehow attracted a demon that was in tune with your body. And since this demon also required a host in order to live, it took you over, using you like a battery of sorts. Which probably means the same happened to Lady since she entered the portal with you, and she is currently acting like a battery for whatever demon took her over. Hearing Naruto's deductive reasoning, Trish couldn't help but be impressed as she said, that was amazing. Are you sure you're Dante's legacy? Naruto simply chuckled before he said, I may be Dante's reincarnation, but I'm not him. It also kinda helps that I am a ninja before coming here and that I'm currently in school again. Besides, while I may act like Dante every now and then, we are most definitely not the same. With that, Naruto got up and said, alright, I'm gonna go rest up in the front seats for a while in order to process the history you've told me about Dante and yourself. While I do that, you're welcome to take a shower in the back if you want, though, I don't think I have any clothes that'll fit you. Smiling, Trish got up, letting the blanket fall, revealing her DD cup breasts, wide hips, and smooth skin. Seeing her body, Naruto froze up, with Trish giving him a teasing smirk at his reaction, oh don't worry about that. I have my ways. She then sashayed her way towards the bathroom, leaving a wide-eyed Naruto behind. After a few minutes, Naruto releases a sigh as he says, something tells me that if Saya-chan ever finds out about this, she'll kill me, devil powers or not. Hearing a giggle from the showers, Naruto made his way towards the seats. Once there, Naruto relaxed his body, with the image of a naked Trish still in his mind as he says, something tells me that I'm in for more surprises like that in the future. Bang. 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 Hearing a noise from the gate, Naruto put his window down and looked outside, wondering what on earth was going on. What he saw caused him to narrow his eyes as he saw a stranger hitting the gates, but the strange thing was that the person didn't seem to be paying attention to the world. It was almost like he was sleepwalking, but that wasn't right since the guy looked ready for a day at the office, causing Naruto to wonder, what the hell is up with that guy? After saying that, Naruto saw a group of teachers moving towards the gate. One of them was the gym teacher, Tashima, and then there was also Kyoko, the busty, female teacher that Naruto liked to tease and get her to blush until she chased him around the school. Though, when he saw the gym teacher grab the guy and bash him against the gate, Naruto got out of his van and began making his way over. Tashima had always had it out for Naruto after he stopped Tashima from forcing himself on Kyoko by almost breaking his arm. It also didn't help that Naruto stood up to Tashima whenever the horrible excuse for a teacher would harass the other students, more specifically the female students. In fact, other than Tashima, there was only one other teacher who Naruto despised, and both have tried multiple times to get Naruto expelled, but it was thanks to his past as a prankster that both teachers couldn't even touch him. Naruto made his way over before shouting, hey, jackass. Didn't the school make you take anger management classes or did your ugly ass waste your time trying to pick up women? Naruto knew this would catch his attention, as no one really deserved to have their teeth knocked down their throat unless they really deserved it. The teachers turned towards Naruto, with Kyoko blushing at his clothes. No one had really figured this out, but she had grown to really like the silver-haired teen. Though, she had tried to deny and bury her feelings, since it wasn't right for a teacher and a student to have a relationship like that. She had gone on several dates in an attempt to ignore her feelings. She had even gone on a date with Tashima for Kami's sake. But, nothing seemed to work as every day, she would then come back to the school and would see the silver-haired teen every time. Tashima was about to yell at Naruto until. Arg. Everyone's eyes widened as everything moved in slow motion. Blood splurted everywhere from the now giant empty space that a piece of flesh once occupied Tashima's arm. The man was screaming in pain as he gripped his arm in an attempt to stop or slow the blood loss. The two other teachers were trying to calm Tashima down, but Naruto could tell something was wrong. Looking towards the man at the gate, Naruto finally got a closer look at him and finally saw the giant missing chunk of flesh that was missing from the man's back with blood dripping down. "Oh, Mr. Tashima, I'm so glad you're alright." Well, he may have tried to force himself on her, Kyoko was just too nice to leave someone alone like that. Hearing Kyoko, Naruto quickly turned around to see that the gym teacher now had pale skin and was moaning like the guy behind the gate. Suddenly, the now undead Tashima grabbed Kyoko and was about to bite her. Clang. That is until he chomped down on a black customized M1911 handgun. Kyoko and the other teachers followed the hand holding the gun, showing that it was Naruto, with a serious face, holding the gun. Naruto then said, "Chew on this." Bang. With a loud bang, blood and brain matter went flying everywhere as Tashima's body dropped to the ground, along with a single bullet casing. Ebony smoking in his hand, though it was also covered in saliva from being inside Tashima's mouth. Taking a black rag out of his coat pocket, Naruto wiped his gun off before holstering it. Naruto then looked at the two other teachers who were horrified to see one of their own students kill someone. "I'm sorry you two, but it seems like the bastard here was dead the moment that guy bit him," Naruto said. Kyoko was looking at the dead body and was about to yell, but stopped once she realized what he had said. She looked at Naruto and said in a shaky tone, "And then Naruto, when why you say bit him, dt do you mean to say?" Kyoko trailed off, but Naruto understood what she was trying to ask and nodded his head and said, "Yeah, when that guy bit him, he turned Tashima into a zombie. In fact, if it wasn't for me, he would have bitten you as well, Kyoko-chan." She blushed at the affectionate suffix, Naruto sawed, and smiled at her and said, "In fact, it looked like he was aiming to bite you right on your big breasts there." Naruto teased with a smirk, trying to lighten the mood and getting Kyoko to blush even more and cover her chest with her arms. She was about to yell at him for being a pervert, but stopped as Naruto turned to the other two teachers and said, "Listen, I need you two to go and send out a broadcast on the PA system. The students and teachers need to know about the attacks going on right now." Naruto turned back to look at the school and said, "No doubt a few of them already got in. We need to warn everybody and save as many as we can." The two teachers nodded before they ran off in order to do just as they were told. Naruto then hears the sound of his van roaring towards him and simply turns around with him standing in front of Kyoko. Suddenly, the van starts screeching to a halt in front of Naruto, causing Kyoko to gasp as it had stopped literal inches from his body. Giving a slight huff, Naruto looked towards the driver and asked, "Now who gave you permission to drive my baby?" The window rolled down, and out of it popped a now fully clothed Trish wearing her regular all-leather outfit, which consisted of black leather pants with double belts, a leather corset, high-heeled boots, a choker, and some kind of accessory for her wrist. She merely smiled and said, "Oh come on Naruto, when I heard the gunshot, I thought something might have happened to you, so I rushed right over." Shaking his head, Naruto picked up Kyoko in a bridal carry, getting her to blush heavily as he moved inside the van and said, "Well, as payment, do you think you can watch over Kyoko-chan for me? She narrowly escaped a zombie attack just now." Trish nodded her head and said, "Sure, besides, I'm still kinda tired from last night and I need to learn more about this world." Naruto nodded his head and said, "Sounds good, and to help out a bit, this world is basically like your old one." "How much like your old world, I don't know, but Kyoko should be able to help fill in any blanks." With that, Naruto put Kyoko down on the sofa before grabbing Rebellion out of his guitar case and heading towards the school building, where he could already hear the teachers making the announcement. Inside the school, Naruto had been walking around the school for a few minutes looking for survivors and killing the occasional zombie that crossed his path when he finally came across some people. The two he found were both girls. They were wearing the school's female uniform, which consisted of a tight white blouse with green collars and black bows. They were also wearing green skirts, long black socks and black shoes. One of the two girls had brown hair that was tied in a bun, amber eyes, along with C-cup breasts. The other had dark blue almost black hair and light blue eyes, along with D-cup breasts. He knew these two, they were Miss Yuzu Ichiju and Tashimi Nikki, and they were running around like a pair of idiots. Naruto couldn't help but sweat drop at the sight of the two, but he quickly snapped back to reality as a zombie was about to munch on Tashimi. Reacting swiftly, he pulled out Ivory and fired, hitting the zombie right through the head, killing it, but also startling the girls, as they didn't expect the loud sound. The two then looked in the direction the shot came from, and couldn't help but blush at how cool Naruto looked in his clothes with a skeletal sword on his back and smoking gun in his hand. Naruto blew the tip of the gun before holstering it and turned to the two of them before asking, "Are you two alright? Neither of you were bit, right?" The two looked at each other before they looked each other over, and seeing no bite marks, cuts or anything wrong, they answer, "No, we're fine." Naruto nodded his head before saying, "That's good." Hearing a noise, Naruto turned to see more zombies coming down the hallway, and snarling slightly he said, "Now, I need you two to follow me as I need to look for survivors." Can I trust you two to watch my back? The two looked at him and nodded their heads, getting him to smile. Which caused them to blush before he said, alright, let's get going. With that, the three then began to move up the stairs since they didn't want to go through all the zombies that were now there. As they moved around, they made sure to be silent while Naruto took care of any zombies he saw with rebellion or ones that Tashimi or Miss Yuzu alerted him about. As they were turning the corner, Naruto saw a group of zombies trying to enter a classroom. Narrowing his eyes at this, Naruto looked at Tashimi and Miss Yuzu and put his finger to his lips, letting them know to be quiet, which they nodded okay to. Naruto moved closer to see that it was a bunch of desks blocking the zombies. Naruto then rushed the group of zombies before he sliced through the heads of 3 zombies on one swing. This caught the rest of the zombies' attention, but they were too slow to do anything as Naruto immediately cleaved right through the rest. Naruto flicked his blade, getting most of the blood off before he put it on his back. Looking inside, he was greeted by the sight of 2 more girls, one with dark blue hair, glasses, blue eyes and freckles, along with C-cup breasts, while the other girl had red hair and golden brown eyes, along with B-cup breasts. Both of which were staring at him with blushes. These 2 were Taneuchi and Kawamoto. He knew them as they were a part of Shido's class, though he was wondering why they were here. Moving the desks out of the way, he looked back over to Tashimi and Miss Yuzu before waving them over, which they did. Once he moved the desks, the 3 entered the room before Naruto asked, "Hey, what are you two doing here?" Taneuchi and Kawamoto looked at Naruto before Taneuchi said, "Shido-sensei left us behind, saying that we would slow down the rest of the group before ditching us." This made Naruto's eyes turn ice cold as he had always despised that snake for always trying to corrupt the students. This time however, Naruto was especially mad as the man had left his own students behind. Naruto then stood up and growled out, "That bastard. He only knows teamwork to use it as a stepping stone. He doesn't care so long as he's safe." The way he was talking about Shido was making the 4 girls shiver, though if that was out of fear at how cold he sounded or arousal at his dominating aura, they didn't know. Naruto quickly made sure the 2 of them were okay before moving back to the door and looking down the halls real quick to make sure they were clear. Once he did that, the 5 of them began moving towards the teacher's lounge, where he was hoping survivors had gone due to the keys to the bus being there. Luckily, they made it without too much trouble, and they even had a stroke of luck when they saw another group. Though, Naruto narrowed his eyes when he saw a zombie approaching Saya while the others were being surrounded. With that, Naruto immediately vanished, at least to the 4 girls who were following him, as he was running towards Saya to protect her. Saya was currently screaming in fear as one of the zombies was closing in on her. Unfortunately, the bag that had the power drill was currently lying away from her as she had dropped it when the zombie scared her, and the rest of the group were currently defending themselves as they were being surrounded. The group was slowly getting tired as they had been fighting and running for a while now. Suddenly, when they were about to be overrun, a gust of wind passed through the area, surprising the group before they watched in shock as all the zombies' heads seemed to suddenly fall off the bodies. Not looking a gift horse in the mouth, the group then remembered Saya and quickly turned ready to protect when they stopped at what they saw. Suddenly, a silver-haired teen appeared in front of Saya with a huge skeletal claymore in his hand extended out as he had just cleaved the zombie's head right off and his eyes were shadowed due to his bangs covering them. The part that surprised the group was how he seemed to be able to hold the huge sword without any problems. He then flicked his sword, getting the blood off of it before turning to face Saya. The group's fighters were about to charge at him but stopped when he stabbed the sword into the ground, kneeled in front of Saya and asked, "Are you alright, Saya-chan?" Saya, hearing the voice, looked up with wide eyes, seeing the silver-haired teen, before her eyes watered and she launched herself at him and wrapped her arms around his neck as she hugged him, with him returning said hug. The group was shocked, mainly Takashi, that Saya Takagi, the genius tough rich girl, whose father was the Don of Tokunosu Prefecture's ultranationalist, was crying in the arms of this stranger. The 4 girls who were following behind Naruto had also finally caught up and were watching with everybody else. Saya looked up at him and exclaimed in as loud a voice as possible, "And just where the hell have you been? You had me worried sick when you didn't contact me last night." Naruto simply held up a hand before saying, "I know you're mad at me, Saya-chan, but can we all please head inside the teacher's lounge before you continue ripping into me?" Saya then realized that she was still surrounded by other people and they were currently not in a safe place, causing her to cutely blush in embarrassment before nodding her head. While the Pincat was furious at him, she was mainly just worried about him. Seeing her calm down, Naruto stood back up, grabbed his sword and opened the door to the teacher's lounge before ushering everyone inside, where he then closed and locked the door. Once inside, everyone sighed in relief at finally having a chance to rest before they all began introducing themselves. "I believe most of you already know Ms. Marikawa, the school nurse, and I'm Seiko Busajima from class 3A. The one who said this was a girl with long, shiny purple hair with a triangular fringe at the front. She had blue eyes and wore the school uniform, though she had a longer skirt while the shirt hugged her D-cup breasts. The woman she was talking about was the school nurse, Shizuka Marikawa. She had long, blonde hair that reached her waist with several bangs framing her face and hazel eyes. She was wearing a white dress shirt that showed off her J-cup breasts and a brown skirt that had a tear in it, slightly showing her black and purple lace underwear. Then a black-haired teen with brown eyes wearing the boys' school uniform with the jacket open showing a red t-shirt introduced himself, "I'm Takashi Kimuro from Class 2B. Miss Busujima, I remember you were runner-up in the national championship last year," said a girl with orange-brown hair, red eyes, and E-cup breasts that were not well hidden due to her uniform shirt being kinda tight. She then continued, "I'm Rei Miyamoto, I'm in the Spear Martial Arts Club. Oh, and I'm Kota Hirano from Class B, just Fee." This was said by a slightly overweight boy with black hair, brown eyes and glasses. He was also wearing the boys' uniform. Siko smiled at them and said, "Nice to meet you." This caused the reaction of Kota gasping, whether in joy, shock or surprise, no one really knew. Saya then sniffled a little before she ranted, "Why are you guys being all warm and fuzzy? Why are you being so polite to her, Miyamoto? You flunked last year, you're at the same age, she's not your elder." This caused Rei to look kinda sad as Takashi then asked, "What are you talking about, Takagi?" Saya then began shouting, "Don't talk to me like I'm stupid. I'm smarter than all of you combined. You should be lucky I'm even in the same show." However, she stopped when the same silver-haired teen from before lightly chopped the top of her head with his hand and with half-lidded eyes said, "What have I told you about that temper of yours, Saya-chan?" She then looked at him and shouted, "Don't talk to me like that. In case you haven't forgotten, you owe my family everything for taking you in and helping you. We got you your van, your licenses, and helped set everything up for you to come to school." Saya was now heavily breathing before she realized what she said, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it." Saya was whispering as she was shocked she had just said all that stuff to him. Naruto merely sighed before he put his arm around her shoulders, bringing her close to him and said, "I know, you just let that temper of yours get the better of you sometimes and you begin shouting whatever comes into your mind." The group were shocked that the person before them wasn't hurt or offended by what Saya had just shouted, especially since it must have been very personal from what they heard. The teen looked around before clearing his throat and saying, "Well, let's finish introductions, shall we?" He then looked at the four girls who had come in with him and said, "I believe it's your turn, girls." They nodded before introducing themselves, and with their introductions out of the way, everyone looked at Naruto. Naruto simply shrugged his shoulders and said, "Alright, my turn I guess." This got a small giggle from Saya, making Naruto smile before he began, "My name is Naruto Uzumaki. I'm from Class 3 and the winner of last year's national championship." Everyone, except Saya, were surprised that he actually goes to their school. Siko was actually surprised that this was the one who had beat her in nationals, since he hadn't taken his helmet or equipment off at all during the competition, even after winning the finals. Saya then finally remembered that she was mad at him, so she elbowed his stomach, getting him let go of her in favor of clutching his stomach before she exclaimed, "Now that we're safe, maybe you can finally tell me where the hell you've been." Naruto sheepishly chuckled and said, "Well, after I finished the job last night, it got pretty late, so I just spent the night in my van, which I had parked in the school's parking lot all day." At the Saya face palmed that she hadn't checked there, since it was usually customary for him to park in the school parking lot if he didn't come home. The others were wondering what kinda job prevents him from going home and what kinda van he must have to be able to sleep in it. Naruto then continued, "Then I woke up pretty early due to the school's bell, made some coffee and toast before I saw the commotion at the front gate and intervened." At this, Takashi exclaimed, "Wait." This got everyone's attention as they all turned to Takashi as he asked, "Were you the reason there was a gunshot from the front gate as well as earlier?" Everyone went wide-eyed, even Saya, as they turned back to Naruto. Naruto nodded his head and nonchalantly said, "Yeah, I shot Tashima the gym teacher in the head after he became a zombie. Then later after I entered the school to look for survivors, I saw a zombie about to chomp onto Shimi-chan over there, so I shot it in the head. Kinda scared her and Miss Yuzu-chan a bit though." The last part he said sheepishly while rubbing the back of his head, while the two girls blushed at the memory of getting scared like that. Kota looked like he had stars in his eyes as he immediately appeared in front of Naruto and asked, "What kind of gun did you use? Can I see it?" Naruto, a little weirded out by the boy's sudden interest, said, "Well, I used dual customized M1911 handguns, and sure, they're right here." With that, Naruto reached behind his hips under his coat and pulled out ebony and ivory, as he said, "Though I just call them ebony and ivory." The group were in awe at the guns, though Siko was more interested in something else, as she said, "That is quite an impressive sword you have there, Uzumaki-san. May I ask where you got it?" Naruto looked at her and said, "Just call me Naruto, I'm not one for formalities, and this sword is actually a family heirloom. Its name is Rebellion. The group thought the sword looked cool, but before they could continue, Shizuka came forward with her bag that was full of medical supplies and said, "I need to check for any injuries, so could you remove your upper clothing for a little bit?" Naruto nodded his head and said, "Sure." With that, Naruto took Rebellion off his back, placing on a table, before taking off his coat, then the holsters for his guns, which Kota was slowly inching towards, until Saya shot him a look, finally followed by his shirt, leaving his upper body naked, aside from the necklace he still had around his neck that he was given by Tsunade. All the girls blushed at the sight of his well-toned chest, muscular arms that weren't overly so, and his hard 8-pack abs. All the girls heavily blushed, with Rei only lightly blushing since she was still getting over her boyfriend's death, while Siko licked her lips since she could clearly see that Naruto was built for combat. After Shizuka was done, Kota and Takashi began trying to blockade the door, which Naruto and Saya noticed. "Hey guys, I wouldn't do that if I were you," Naruto said, getting the two guys to stop and look at him. "Why not? We need to barricade the door in case more of them try to come in," Takashi replied, wondering why they shouldn't blockade the door. Saya put on her glasses and said, "He's right, doing that will just waste time and energy that you could be using to rest. Besides, well, the door is strong enough to hold them back for a little while, it is also our only exit and having to move all those tables and desks would take too long." Seeing what the two were saying, Takashi and Kota decided against blockading the door. It was at this time that Rei turned on the TV, more specifically the news channel, only to see that the world was indeed ending and everyone was freaking out. The group couldn't believe that something like this was happening, however, there was one person who wasn't panicking. "No, that can't be right," Naruto muttered to himself after putting his clothes back on while holding his chin. This got the attention of Saya and the others as he kept muttering, "Things like this don't happen in the human world without a reason. The only way something like this could happen is if no, that's too crazy, but it's the only thing that makes sense." Well, along with that possibility. Saya, having enough of her friend's muttering, asked, "What are you thinking about, Naruto?" "Just a couple of theories I have about the cause of all this, but unfortunately, I can't confirm them until I learn more about what's going on and I see other areas," Naruto said, making the group curious about what he was thinking before he said, "Anyways, enough about that, I want to know how we're gonna get out of here. As my van can hold a couple of you, but not all of us. What about the microbuses that are used for field trips?" The group turned to see Kota pointing out the window and said, "They're still here, and the keys should be too." Siko nodded her head and said, "Alright, but where would we go? We can't just keep driving around after all." Shizuka then clapped her hands and said, "We can go to my friend's apartment that I'm house sitting. It's big, spacious and there's this big vehicle out front." She spread her arms out in an attempt to explain how huge the vehicle was, but it only made her breasts more pronounced as they began to bounce, causing Takashi and Kota to blush and turn their heads. "Alright, sounds like a plan, now we need to move. Gather what we need, anything that can be used as a weapon grab it, and let's get going," Naruto said, not being affected by Shizuka's bouncing breasts as he was focused on getting them all out safely. The girls all blushed at his commanding tone and aura, but quickly shook them off as they had to focus. Once everyone was ready, they all made their way towards the door, with Naruto being in the front. He put his hand up to stop everyone before cracking the door open to see if it was clear, which it wasn't as a few zombies had gathered. The group was ready to fight, but Saya got their attention and said, "Don't waste your energy. Leave it to Naruto, he knows what he's doing." With that, the group watched as Naruto quietly exited the room before pulling Rebellion off his back. Naruto then charged before he gave a wide swing with Rebellion, chopping the heads off all the zombies in one go, shocking the group except Saya as she simply smirked since she had seen him train with her father before. The group quietly made their way to the front doors, but they also met up with another group of students. As they continued their way to the front, they all stopped when they saw another large group of zombies. Naruto knew he could take them all on, but the problem was that he couldn't fight and protect the group at the same time, even with his devil trigger. Saya then chose this point in time to inform everyone, "Hang on, from what I've seen, they don't react to anything but sound. They even ate one of their own earlier, which is further proof that they can't see." "Well, who wants to go down there to test that theory?" Kota asked, as he knew very well that he wouldn't do it. Everyone was looking at each other, wondering who would volunteer. Takashi was about to volunteer, but he was beaten to it as someone said, "I'll do it." Everyone turned to see Naruto was the one who volunteered. Saya got wide-eyed as she loudly whispered, "Are you crazy, you can't go down there. Besides, what if I'm wrong?" Naruto placed his hand on her shoulder and said, "That's why I'm going because I can defend myself better than anyone else. Besides, you've never steered me wrong before, so I know you won't start now." With that, Naruto jumped all the way down the stairs, not making a single sound, which surprised the group and impressed Siko. While becoming a half-devil caused my chakra to completely overload, it's a good thing I remembered the training for the Muin Satsujin. Star. It especially helped that it doesn't require chakra to master, along with most of my pranks, was me not using chakra. Thought Naruto, as he still needed to train his chakra back up to standard, since his control was completely shot to hell upon becoming a half-devil. Though, that might have been due to his chakra reserves growing even more massive than before, which he thought was impossible. Seeing that none of the zombies were reacting to his presence, Naruto thought, I knew you were right, Saya-chan. It seems they really don't react to anything. Naruto noticed a shoe on the ground and kicked it, causing it to hit some lockers away from him, which attracted the zombies, except to sound. I'm gonna have to really remember to treat Saya-chan to her ice cream. With that, Naruto motioned for the group to begin coming down quietly, which they did. They were almost out the door when. Clang. The boy who was from the other group was super nervous, and because of that, he didn't notice the metal beam his weapon was about to hit until it was too late. Everyone stopped for a second before Takashi shouted, Ruun. As they all began running, Naruto was just leisurely speed walking as he grabbed Rebellion from his back. He could hear Saya berating Takashi for shouting, but Naruto knew that the sound would have reverberated throughout the whole school. While the rest of the group was almost at the bus, Naruto was still speed walking as he took out his phone while chopping off the head of a zombie. Hey Trish, can you bring my van around the school, close to the buses? Naruto chopped off another head, there's gonna be a few people hanging around, chopping off another head, Naruto then swapped Rebellion for Ivory and began firing shots, all of which were headshots, don't worry about any damage. My van is made from military-grade metals and materials, that baby could crash through cars and not suffer any damage. It's basically a faster version of a tank, just without the cannon. Once that chat was done, Naruto put his phone away before he jumped over the horde of zombies. While in midair, Naruto grabbed Ebony and began to unleash a rain of bullets into the horde, all of which were headshots. All while he was still upside down. Once he landed, Naruto began making his way back to the group. As people were getting on the bus, Naruto spotted his van knocking and slamming into zombies, sending them flying. The others noticed the van as well, and Saya was wondering who the hell was driving if Naruto was with them. The van then screeched to a halt right next to the bus, before out walked Trish with her own set of dual customized M1911 handguns. The group was wondering who this person was, while Saya was fuming at such a woman walking out of Naruto's van. However, the group then gained wide eyes when Trish began charging her guns with her demonic electricity, which made the bullets take out lines of zombies. Naruto just huffed at her showing off before he said, alright everyone. Go to either the bus or the van. We'll hold them off. With that, Naruto turned to face the zombies before he held his guns out and began to fire at rapid speed. While they were holding off the horde, the group separated with Takashi's group going to the bus, while the girls who were following Naruto went to his van. Once everyone was in the vehicles, they prepared to drive until they heard another group shouting for them to wait. Naruto saw who it was and snarled at the face of Shido, but withheld himself from accidentally shooting Shido in the head as Takashi shouted to wait for them. With that, Naruto kept firing at a rapid pace until he saw Shido kick a student in the face as they twisted their ankle. Naruto snarled at this before he stopped firing as he ran into the horde of zombies, shocking everyone. Naruto had Rebellion in hand as he was cleaving through all the zombies before he finally made it to the student. Naruto picked the boy up, seeing no bite marks, and then jumped to the bus, where he dropped the kid off. Before he went back to his van, Naruto looked at Saya and said, Saya-chan, she turned to him, showing he had her attention, and said, make sure to tune the bus's radio to my van. You know the number, I want to be able to hear if there are any changes to the plan. Saya nodded before Naruto exited the bus just as the door closed before he made it to his van and got in. With Naruto now in the passenger's seat and Trish in the driver's seat, the van and bus started up before they drove out the school, with the van easily crashing through the gates and heading for the city. As the group was driving through the city, Naruto and Trish couldn't help but be disgusted by Shido's preaching. The two looked at each other and nodded with Naruto, figuring it might be best to stop this sort of thing quickly. Picking up the van's microphone, Naruto said, what a bunch of bullshit. Your pasty ass should know that preaching like that only has power over the weak wills of scared and defenseless people. So I suggest you shut the hell up, because if I hear any more of that. Naruto trailed off as he sat on the van's window and aimed his gun before. Bang. In slow motion, a bullet left the gun and headed for the windshield of the bus before piercing straight through. Leaving no cracks, as Naruto had channeled a little of his demonic power into the bullet, as the same result happened to the back window, with only little holes showing the bullet's entry and exit being left behind. Arg. As it turned out, the bullet had passed right through one of Shido's ears, taking a chunk of meat off him. Naruto smiled, as no doubt a few of the others were smiling at the poor excuse of a teacher's agony and pain, namely Rei and Saya. The rule's no longer to this world anymore, you scumbag. So if I hear you babbling on about such stuff again, the next bullet goes right through your head. And just so you know, I was aiming for that big ear of yours, I figured you'd appreciate it if it was smaller. Besides, I can hit a target 50 yards away while in a moving vehicle, so taking you out would be too easy. Getting back in the van, Naruto puts the microphone down, not noticing that Kyoko and the female students in the van all had deep blushes at how dominating he was. Trish on the other hand simply had a smile as she thought, if Naruto hadn't done that, I most certainly would have, but damn that was hot. Naruto headed to the back where his jukebox was and put on a song, in hopes that it would help relax everyone, since the others on the bus could hear them too. He then went back to his seat and said, "So Trish, got any stories about how you and Dante became friends?" Trish smiled, and with that, she began telling stories about her adventures with Dante and the others. They kept talking and driving until they noticed a group of zombies were in front of them. The jukebox then changes songs. Play Devil May Cry 5, Devil Trigger Nero's battle theme. Pulling out his gun, Naruto exclaimed, "Trish." She simply smiled and said, "I see them Naruto, don't worry." With that, she began driving faster, crashing into almost every zombie. Naruto looked at the teacher and students and said, "You guys better buckle up. Thanks to Trish here, we're gonna have a bumpy ride." Trish just swatted Naruto's shoulder playfully while the two of them chuckled. Once the girls and teacher were secured, Naruto leaned out the window and began firing at the zombies. However, one of them managed to grab Trish's side of the van, but she merely charged her hand with lightning before touching the zombie's head, frying its brain and causing it to fall. As they kept going, Trish managed to catch two of them on the windshield. Using the wipers, she cleans them off the glass. The two of them then saw a roadblock ahead, getting Naruto and Trish to smile at each other before Trish sped up and suddenly turned, causing enough space for the bus behind them to get through. It also caused the van to tumble in midair, with Naruto flying out the window, grabbing both of his guns, he began shooting all the zombies that were flying towards him. The zombie tried to grab him, but Naruto simply shot it in the head and he just kept doing so, with a bullet sometimes going through one zombie's head just to hit another in the head. While this was happening, everything was going in slow motion, the van flying upside down caused everything to go flying. Trish then saw a slice of beef jerky flying through the air. She slowly caught it in her mouth, smiling while watching Naruto spin around and taking out all the zombies. What can she say, she was hungry. Naruto then flipped on the undercarriage of the van, slowly flipping upright. The girls and teacher were shouting in fear and thrill, but also amazement at Naruto's acrobatic skills and gun mastery. As the van was flipping upright, a zombie was falling next to it with a sign in its head. Naruto was flipping over the van, just as a car exploded, he made it to his window where he entered without a problem. Putting his guns away and his boots on the dash, Naruto sighed in relief. He then looked towards Trish for a second before noticing what was in her mouth. "Hey, is that one of my secret stash jerky?" Trish just smiled at him and said, "Oh, come on, Naruto. I haven't eaten since I got here. She used a teasing tone in her voice. Naruto just groaned and said, "Fine, but at least wait until we get more food the next time we stop." The others couldn't believe it, after everything Naruto and Trish did, they couldn't believe they were arguing over a piece of jerky like nothing happened. Kyoko and the girls giggled at the silliness, but they were also covering up the wet spots in their underwear, as they couldn't deny that it was hot how Naruto took down all those zombies so easily. Even the group on the bus behind them were amazed at Naruto's feat, though Saya face-palmed when she heard Naruto arguing about a piece of jerky. Though, the girls couldn't help but giggle, while Takashi and Kota chuckled at the icebreaker of such an awesome display. But Shizuka though, she had a hard time driving as she had begun rubbing her thighs together when Naruto showed such a display of acrobatics. Showing that she had a wet spot too, no doubt Saya, Rei, Siko, and the other girls on the bus did as well. It would seem the van and bus group will be having an interesting journey from now on. Though, Naruto was thinking about recent events, zombies showing up the day after I fight a demon. Something isn't adding up here, and I intend to find out what. Naruto then looked out the window as he had one thought before he decided to go to sleep, let's just hope it's what I'm thinking, or this world is in a lot more trouble than it's ready for. It had been a few hours since he and everyone else had left the school in either his van or the bus. It had been fine at first since he would talk with Trish about her time with Dante or with Kyoko, Miss Yuzu, and Tashimi about how they were handling this whole situation. It was a given that the three of them were still pretty shaken up, considering they probably weren't expecting a zombie apocalypse when they woke up today. The three of them were very glad that he would talk to them and help them deal with the sudden and very drastic change to their normal lives. It also helped that he was calm and patient since they had each started to mumble in denial, since they had refused to acknowledge all of the changes. However, instead of getting mad and yelling or shouting at them, he had simply either held them close in the cases of Toshimi and Miss Yuzu or had gently rubbed their shoulders in the case of Kyoko. This had greatly helped them calm down, and they were finally able to accept that the world had changed, but what they refused to accept was that the world would stay like this forever. When they told him this, he had simply smiled like he knew something before he would reassure them that the world wouldn't stay like this forever. After that, he would take time to talk with Saya over the radio to see how she was doing. Of course, the others on the bus would ask him questions about himself as well. Like Siko asked about his sword, who he received it from, and who gave him his training. Or Kota would ask him about his guns and how he could fire so many bullets without needing to reload. He didn't mind the questions and would either answer them with as much of the truth as he could without divulging too much information, or he would politely say that he can't answer the question. Of course, then there were the questions Shido and his pack of cultists would ask: where did he acquire his abilities? How did Trish, or as they referred her as the leather-clad blonde, acquire her abilities? Where did the two of them get their guns and where did he get his sword? He would keep asking extremely personal questions despite Naruto refusing to answer. Honestly, it made Naruto want to take another shot at Shido, but he didn't since he didn't want to look like a person who shot at anything that annoyed him. Besides, what good would it do him to waste more demonic energy on someone as pointless as Shido? Right now, it was getting late and Naruto knew that it wouldn't be good for Shizuka to keep driving through the night. Naruto knew that Trish and himself could very well handle driving all night, but he didn't want everyone to sleep in the van or on the bus where they would be uncomfortable. Especially those on the bus since Shido and his followers were on the other bus with Saya and the others. Pulling up the radio, Naruto asked, "Hey Saya, how's everyone doing over there?" "Everything's fine, but we're all feeling pretty tired," Saya said from the bus. "Yeah, I figured," Naruto replied with a slight chuckle. He then continued, "After what you've all been through today, I would be surprised if you weren't tired." HMPH, laugh it up all you want, but what are we going to do? Saya asked, "We can't very well sleep on the bus, for multiple reasons." "Yeah, I know. Have everyone look around for a place where we could all stay for the night before we continue moving tomorrow." "Alright, we'll let you know if we see anything," Saya replied before the line went silent again. With that, everyone began to look around for a place where all of them could rest for the night before they continued moving in the morning. Naruto knew that he and Trish would easily be able to stay up all night long, but he also knew that Shizuka would need a rest, along with the others. However, Naruto did not want them sleeping in a moving vehicle, especially when Shido and his group of followers were there with them. Not only did Naruto not like Shido and his cult, since that is what they are, but he especially didn't trust them. Shido just gave off this disturbing aura or feeling that whenever Naruto was near or looked at him, he felt this urge to pull out rebellion and cut off Shido's head. Which was strange to Naruto since he only felt like this when fighting a demon or when a demon was near. Narrowing his eyes, Naruto thought to himself, "I'm gonna have to keep an eye on him because no human should give off such a disturbing aura. Not even the Jinchuriki back home gave off such an aura." He must have zoned out for longer than he thought as his shoulder was being lightly shaken. Shaking his head a bit, Naruto turned and saw Trish was the one shaking him. Giving Trish his attention, he said, "Sorry, I was lost in thought, what did you say?" I asked, "Are you okay?" Trish asked as she had noticed Naruto was in deep thought and had looked tense. "Yeah," Naruto said, "just thinking about something that doesn't make sense." Trish was confused at this, since if Naruto was at least similar to Dante, then he wouldn't think over something very deeply if he didn't need to. Especially if it didn't make any sense. "What do you mean?" Trish asked, as if he was thinking this deeply about something that doesn't make sense, then it must be something to look out for. "Well, I'm not sure if you ever get this feeling," Naruto started, "but whenever I fight and hunt bad or evil demons, I always have this feeling of wanting to kill them. Like it's ingrained or programmed into my brain and my very soul to hunt and kill them due to the feeling of evil and malice they give off." Trish nodded as she said, "Well, I do know what you're talking about, not from experience since I'm a full-blooded demon, but from Dante sometimes telling me the same thing whenever I would ask him how he knew I was different from other demons." "Well," Naruto began as he furrowed his brow a bit, "I've been getting that feeling lately." He then looked her in the eye and said, "Around Shido." Trish looked at Naruto in surprise as she said, "Really? But he's a human, a despicable piece of human filth, but a human nonetheless." "I know," Naruto said while running his hand through his hair in an exasperated manner, "but that's why I'm so confused and have been thinking about it so intensely. I know it doesn't make sense, but I can't shake that feeling because of how deeply it's been ingrained into me." Naruto rested his chin in his palm while he looked out the window of his van as he said, "If it wasn't for my chakra control getting shot when I first changed into what I am now, I wouldn't be having this issue, since I would be able to sense negative emotions." However, since I was changed to a genetic level from all the demonic energy that flooded my body when I was pierced by Dante's sword, my chakra control was shot to hell, and I lost all of my abilities, including my passive abilities. Well, Trish began, not surprised by Naruto's words as he had told her about himself and his previous world. Why haven't you tried training to get your control back? Because I wasn't able to before, Naruto replied, getting a confused look from Trish. Why not? When I said that my body was flooded with demonic energy, I meant it was flooded with the stuff, Naruto said before lifting his left hand and summoning his demonic energy which came in the form of wild red energy. I was filled with enough demonic energy to match the amount of chakra I had when at my peak, which was a lot. However, because of this, my chakra and demonic energy were always clashing with each other, so I couldn't train with them or even use them. But my fight with the demon that was using you as a host seems to have balanced my demonic energy and my chakra. Naruto then lifted his head off his right hand and summoned chakra, which was causing his hand to shine blue. So Trish began, what does that mean? Naruto clenched his fists and smirked at Trish while saying, it means that I can finally get my strength and abilities back. Hey Naruto. The two were prevented from continuing their conversation when they heard Saya's voice from the radio. Picking up the mic, Naruto asked, I'm here Saya-chan, what's up? I think we found a building where we can stay the night, Saya replied. Alright, Naruto said, have Ms. Shizuka drive to the building while we follow behind you guys. Alright, sounds good, see you in a few minutes, Saya replied. The drive took a couple of minutes to get to the building, during which Saya kept Naruto informed about Shido and his followers. Naruto had told Saya a bit about his job and the feeling he gets when fighting or hunting. She was a little worried when he explained how when he hunts bad guys, since he couldn't very well tell her that he hunts demons, but she understood that it was because of his feeling that made him the perfect person to hunt and fight them. So when Naruto told Saya about how he gets those same feelings around Shido, this caused some alarm and suspicion to rise in Saya, but she didn't do anything and simply kept tabs on them. While she would have normally confronted Shido and his group, she trusted Naruto, and if he said to stay away from something, it was always for a reason. Especially since her mother had explained when Naruto saved her from nearly being kidnapped when he warned her of a feeling he held about some seemingly innocent people. It had confused Saya so much that her mother completely trusted Naruto despite him seemingly arriving out of nowhere. However, when he had protected her the one time she let her mouth and temper get the better of her, she finally understood why her mother trusted Naruto. It was because they were precious to him and he always protected those precious to him. Saya shook her head as she exited the bus with everyone else before watching Naruto come out of his van with the ones in his van. He looked throughout the area with slightly narrowed eyes and his sword in hand. She had to admit, he was indeed very handsome, especially when he had his shirt off. Saya's eyes widened as she became incredibly red in the face, shaking her head. Saya thought to herself, no. No, no, no. Stop that, Saya. He's simply a friend, you shouldn't be having such thoughts about your friend. No matter how handsome and strong he is. Saya immediately blushed brightly again and shook her head, unaware of the person coming up behind her. She jumped when she felt a hand on her shoulder and turned to see Naruto looking at her with a concerned expression while was holding his sword over his shoulder. Hey Saya, you okay? Naruto asked, worried for his friend as he had noticed she seemed to have stayed in the back while seeming to be in thought about something. I'm fine, completely fine. Saya hastily exclaimed as she moved past him and began to head inside, causing Naruto to frown as he looked at her back. Did I do something to upset you? Naruto asked, getting Saya to freeze mid-stride. Turning around, Saya saw the sad look on his face and flinched as she thought, that kind of look doesn't belong on your face. Saya sighed as she walked back as she looked up at him, since he was over a foot taller than her, with her standing at 5'1" and Naruto standing at 6'3". Looking up at him, Saya says, it's not you, Naruto. I'm just stressed about this whole situation. I mean, this morning, I woke up thinking we were gonna go to school, then we'd go get ice cream before going home. I never expected all of this to happen. Saya then looked down as she began shaking, and her voice got shaky. And what about my mother, what if she didn't make it? And if she did, imagine how worried and scared she must be for us. I just want this all to be a really crazy, vivid dream, and then I wake up and meet you at school. Saya wasn't lying, while she wasn't being completely honest with Naruto, these were her true thought and feelings. She was scared and worried about everything that's going on and for her mother's safety. Normally, Saya would never let anyone see her in a moment of weakness like this and would have simply made something up to keep them at arm's length. However, Naruto always had this innate ability to know when she, her mother or anyone else lied, so she had decided to tell him one truth while hiding the other. Now, before anyone decides to say that this is Naruto's ability to detect negative emotions, let me remind you, he lost that ability when his body was flooded with the demonic energy. This caused his chakra and demonic energy to clash and go out of control to the point of him being unable to use them. So that meant no trickster, no shadow clones, no Rasengan, and no detecting negative emotions. What this part meant is that he got so used to detecting when someone lies that he inherently can tell when someone lies, even without detecting the lie. Similar to how he knows when someone is wearing a fake smile due to his experience in wearing fake smiles from his childhood. Naruto frowned as he knew that Saya was telling a truth, but it wasn't the truth to his question. At least, not the entire truth, however he wasn't going to push her. He knew very well that she wouldn't tell him if she didn't want to. So for now, he wouldn't push her as he didn't want to hurt their friendship and would accept her answer since he understood that she was scared and worried, just like everyone else. "Hey," Naruto said while lifting Saya's head by her chin, "everything is going to be alright. I won't let anything happen to you." Saya looked at Naruto and saw the determination and assurance in his eyes, and she couldn't help but feel that he really would keep her safe. Saya smiled at him before she hugged him and said, "Thank you, Naruto-kun. I know you'll keep me and the others safe because there is no one more qualified to make sure this nightmare ends." Naruto smiled as he returned Saya's hug with his free arm, where they stayed for longer than normal friends would before they broke the hug and Naruto motioned towards the building and said, "Come on, let's get inside so that we can get everyone situated in rooms. We still need to see how many rooms are available, aren't covered in blood, which doesn't have zombies inside them, and if anyone wants a room to themselves." Saya nodded before she moved ahead of him so that she can catch up to everyone so she could get first dibs on a room next to Naruto. What? Just because she didn't want to admit her feelings didn't mean she didn't know what they were. She just wasn't ready to act on them yet, but with the world being how it is, maybe she'll admit her feelings during this crazy time. Time skip. It was currently the middle of the night and everyone was asleep in their rooms. Shido and his group were sent to the opposite end of the hall from the rest of the group due to no one wanting to associate with them and their cultist Minsid. Kauda and Takashi were sharing a room on the right side of Naruto's room, while Saya chose the room to the left of his room. Shizuka and Kyoko decided to sleep in the same room since they wanted to give the other girls their own room. Siko and Rei shared a room, while Taneuchi, Kawamoto, Miss Yuzu and Tashimi shared another. The girls had all decided to spend the night down the hall, separated from the guys, while also convincing Trish to sleep on their side as well. Naruto guessed it was for the little bit of normalcy that they could still scrounge up in this crazy world. However, the only one not participating was Yuuki, who had decided she wanted her own room in the middle of the hall. Naruto had decided to talk to Yuuki to see if she was okay and why she didn't want a room closer to the other girls. After all, Naruto wasn't going to let one of his friends separate themselves and become a loner if he could help it. Flashback. The girls had just finished picking their rooms and were all heading inside so that they can get some sleep. However, Yuuki was stopped from entering her room when she felt someone tapping on her shoulder. Yuuki tensed for a second before turning around, only to sigh in relief when she saw Naruto standing there with his sword on his back. Smiling at him, Yuuki said, "Hey there, Naruto-kun. What's up?" Returning the smile with his usual grin, Naruto said, "Hey Yuuki-chan, do you mind if I talk to you for a quick second? Promise it won't take more than 5 minutes." Yuuki looked and saw the other girls were already in their rooms, but she saw Shido and his group staring at her in lust. Suppressing a shiver and hoping Naruto didn't notice, Yuuki said, "Okay, let's talk in my room so I can go to sleep once we're done." Yuuki then opened the door to her room and walked inside with Naruto following behind her before they closed the door. Neither was aware of one from Shido's group glaring at the two of them while leering at Yuuki. After entering the room, Yuuki had told Naruto he could sit on the bed or the chair to wait while she changed clothes. While Naruto waited, he looked around the room. The room Yuuki had chosen wasn't that extravagant compared to the other available rooms, but it gave off a feeling of home. The bed was a full-size bed with white and purple sheets and light purple pillows. There was a desk that had a computer, which Naruto doubted worked, along with a chair, which he sat in, and a printer. There was a nightstand next to the bed with a lamp and drawers that were full of socks and other bits of clothing. Naruto moved his attention away from the drawers of clothes since he did not want Yuuki walking in and seeing him staring at the drawers and thinking he was a perv. Okay, so he may be a bit of a perv, but what did you expect when you trained with Jiraiya of the Sannin? However, unlike Jiraiya, Naruto was popular with women since he didn't go around hot springs to peep on women, but instead would compliment and tell them how beautiful they were. Jiraiya had been jealous and began saying how his dad had been the same with the ladies, but less aware of his actions than Naruto. Naruto didn't care how jealous Jiraiya became since he told the man many times that he'd be more popular if he'd kept his perversions in check. Naruto was knocked out of his thoughts when Yuuki walked out of the bathroom wearing a pair of light blue short shorts and a grey tank top, both of which hugged her body tightly and showed her long legs, heart-shaped ass, and her E-cup breasts. Yuuki walked over to the bed and placed her school uniform on the end before she sat on the bed, crossing her legs and looking at Naruto with a smile. So, Yuuki started with her usual bubbly self and a smile, what did you want to talk about? However, Yuuki flinched when she saw Naruto giving her a sad smile as he replied, you don't have to hide how you're feeling, you know. It's just the two of us right now and I'm pretty sure the walls are thick enough to prevent the others from hearing what we're saying, so long as we're not shouting. Yuuki's smile faded away as she began frowning while pulling her legs to her chest, showing how afraid she was. Yuuki then whispered, how is it that you always know what I'm feeling? Despite whispering, Naruto was able to hear her thanks to his enhanced hearing and chuckled a bit before saying, because, well you may be pretty good at wearing a fake smile, I was a master at them when I was younger. Yuuki lifted her head a bit and looked over her knees at him, well he had a gentle smile on his face and said, and while I may not have to use those smiles anymore, I do still have the ability to tell when someone is wearing one. Besides, why wouldn't I know when one of my friends is feeling troubled by something? I forgot, Yuuki thought as she hid her face again in hopes of hiding her smile. Naruto-kun isn't one to leave his people alone if they are feeling troubled. Especially when they're his friends. Yuuki then thought back to when she had first met Naruto and how he had saved her from what could have been the worst moment in her life. Flashback within FLASHBACK. Yuuki's POV. Yuuki looked around her in fear as she was surrounded by a bunch of boys from her school, another school, and the local gang. Hell, she saw a few boys who she had thought were the nice and innocent type from around the school and neighborhood. However, now they all surrounded her and her friend while leering at the two of them. LMMPH. Yuuki tried to scream for help, but her mouth was covered before she could finish calling for help by one of the boys from her school. Shut up if you know what's good for you, said the boy holding her mouth. She remembered his name was Tsunoda and how he has had an extreme obsession with her. She never liked him because she had found out that he was the reason the rumors of her being the school slut had started. Yuuki struggled in Tsunoda's grip, hoping, praying, that she and her friend would be okay. Hoping that Kami or some benevolent being could hear her prayers and would answer them. Luckily for her, someone did hear her, but they were the furthest thing from a benevolent being there is. What's going on here? Yuuki looked to see someone she had recognized from her school, Naruto-kun, what is he doing here? Is he here to help us or to join them? Yuuki thought while being very afraid at the last thought possibly being the case. A bunch of dudes, scared girls, and an alley away from view. That sounds like the start to either a really bad and dark joke or the start of what would be the most damaging and painful part of their lives. Yuuki slightly sweat-dropped at the first part of what he said since, when she thought about it, it did sound like the start to a bad joke. Yuuki suddenly blinked when Tsunoda let go of her and began making his way towards Naruto while another boy restrained her. Who the hell do you think you are, huh? She heard Tsunoda exclaim. Naruto hadn't replied and Yuuki suddenly jumped when Tsunoda suddenly grabbed Naruto by his collar and exclaimed, hello, did you hear what I said? I asked who the hell are you? Geez, calm down Tostada, came Naruto reply in his usual calm and lazy voice. Yuuki and her friend couldn't help but begin giggling when they heard him as they thought it was funny. Clearly Tsunoda didn't when she heard him exclaim, my name isn't Tostada. As for who I am, Yuuki heard Naruto begin while he placed the guitar case that he always has on him down, I'm the one who's going to help those girls and kick all of your asses. This caused the boys to begin glaring at his words before all of their eyes, including Yuuki's and her friend's eyes, widened when Tsunoda suddenly flew past them, slamming into some trash cans. Looking back, they saw the boy was unconscious and was covered in trash that had once filled the trash cans. Hearing something cracking, they all turned back to Naruto and saw him slowly cracking his fingers while cracking his neck. Yuuki watched as he slowly approached the boys before Naruto asked, before we get started, would anyone like to leave while still unbroken? This terrified the group of boys as one of them nervously asked, why you mean unharmed right? The next 4 words Naruto said next caused absolute panic to set in. No, I meant unbroken. With that, Yuuki and her friend watched as Naruto lunged at the group before proceeding to give all the boys the worst beating they will ever experience in their lives. Not even 5 minutes later and Naruto was dusting his hands off while all the boys are now in a pile with bruises, black eyes, broken noses, broken bones, and with a lot of wounded pride. Yuuki saw Naruto turn to her and her friend and she figured he was probably able to see the astonishment that she and her friend shared. Regular POV. After he was finished laying into all the boys, Naruto had turned to the girls to make sure they were okay. After looking them over for injuries, Naruto also paid attention to who they were and what they were wearing. He kind of recognized the girl who wore his school uniform which consisted of a short green and white plaid skirt, white dress shirt that hugged her frame and E-cup breasts. She had light orange hair that was held back with a headband, yellow eyes, and earrings with some regular black shoes. He may not know her name, but he definitely recognized her. The other girl, however, he didn't know. She had tan skin, long blonde hair, and blue eyes. She wore a choker around her neck, loose socks, brown shoes, a red and yellow plaid skirt, a blue sweater tied around her waist, and a white dress shirt that she had left mostly unbuttoned, showing off a lot of cleavage from her F-cup breasts. After looking them over to check for any injuries, Naruto asked, "Are the two of you okay?" The blonde girl nodded with a smile and said, "Yup. Thanks a bunch. Who knows what would have happened to us if you hadn't stopped them." Naruto gave one of his lazy smiles with half-lidded eyes and replied while shrugging his shoulders, "It was no biggie, I was walking by when I heard one of you scream before it was cut off. It may have been for a brief second, but it was still enough to pique my curiosity enough for me to see what was happening. Well, I for one, am glad that Yuki-chan has such powerful vocal cords. Anyways, I'm Kyoko Shiraishi, and this is my friend Yuki Miku." The now named Kyoko introduced herself and Yuki. Naruto then stopped giving a lazy smile in exchange for a proper one as said, "I'm Naruto Uzumaki, and it's a pleasure to meet you Kyoko-chan, and to officially meet you, Yuki-chan." Flashback within flashback END. Since then, Naruto had occasionally hung out with Yuki and Kyoko in order to deepen the friendship the three of them had. Turns out, both girls had been deemed as the school slut from their respective stalkers due to their looks and attempts to get them for themselves. They had met each other when they had both went to a cafe to try and forget the leering and rumors for the day. Since then, the two of them had become inseparable and were the best of friends. As time progressed and the trio spent time together, Naruto had taken on the role of bodyguard for Yuki and Kyoko whenever some unsavory guys tried to force themselves on the two. Anyways, coming out of her trip down memory lane, Yuki looked at Naruto with a sad smile and said, "I'm sorry, Naruto-kun. I'm just worried about Kyoko and the other two. I know they have that big wall around their house, but I'm still worried about them." Naruto frowned a bit as he got up from the chair and moved over to the bed before sitting down on her right. Gently wrapping an arm around her shoulders, Naruto brought Yuki into a one-armed hug, getting her to stiffen for a second before she relaxed into his arm. She felt so safe and warm whenever he held her like this, like a protective blanket that would shield her from all those that would cause her harm. Naruto gently rubbed her left arm as he said, "It's okay to be worried, but don't let that be a reason you prevent yourself from interacting with the others." Yuki shook her head before saying, "That's not why I don't want to interact with the other girls. I just don't want to be ridiculed by them if it turns out that they believed the rumors about me. It doesn't help that Shido is here with Tsunoda and his group. All of them make me extremely uncomfortable, especially Tsunoda and his obsession with me." Naruto's frown deepened when he felt Yuki shiver when mentioning Tsunoda. He, of course, knew who Tsunoda was, but he didn't respect the dude. That's the main reason why he still calls him Tsunoda instead of Tsunoda, because he hasn't earned the privilege or respect from Naruto to be called by his name. Hugging Yuki a little closer and tighter, Naruto said, "Don't worry, if any of them try anything, I'll be there to protect you. That's a promise and you know me and my promises, right?" Yuki nodded her head with a soft smile as she began to feel drowsy from the warm and safe feeling Naruto was emitting as she slowly said, "You never go back on your word." With that, Yuki fell asleep, softly breathing as she leaned into Naruto, who smiled softly at her. Naruto then slowly got up, being extra careful not to wake her, before he laid her on the bed and covered her with a blanket. Naruto moved towards the door and grabbed the doorknob before opening the door. However, as he began closing the door behind him, Naruto turned back to look at Yuki and thought, "Good night Yuki-chan, and don't worry." Naruto looked forward, unaware that his eyes were flashing between blue and crimson, with a determined look in his eyes as he finished his thought, "If Shido or any of them try anything, I will make sure they regret." Flashback END. Currently, Naruto was at the top of the building, meditating with rebellion on his back. Well, to be more precise, Naruto was on the wall at the top of the building. See, he was currently controlling his chakra to stick to the wall while slowly reducing how much he used. This was a little exercise he had developed to further increase one's chakra control when using the tree walking technique. It had been something that was on his mind one day as he thought about possibly reducing the amount of chakra he uses to stick to trees and walls to have more chakra when fighting. Anyways, Naruto sat still for a few more minutes before he stood up on the wall and stretched. He then grabbed rebellion from his back and began to practice with it by increasing its weight. Naruto had messed around with rebellion a bit while the group was driving and had found that when he channels his demonic power into rebellion, it not only becomes sharper, but lighter as well. However, when Naruto channeled chakra into rebellion, it became sharper as well as heavier and denser. When Naruto realized this, he began grinning like a maniac to the point that Trish had worried he was secretly insane and hadn't told her. Of course, Naruto erased Trish's worries when he simply explained he was going to enjoy training like crazy again. Anyways, Naruto was currently swinging the heavier rebellion around in order to strengthen his arms and to also get used to the heavier sword for quicker movements. Normally, he would have used gravity and resistant seals, but he didn't have any ink or brushes to use. On top of that, Naruto knew that, even if he had the ink and brushes, he wanted his chakra control to be a little better so that he doesn't accidentally overcharge the seals. Naruto shuddered as he remembered the one time he accidentally overcharged a gravity seal during his training trip with Jiraiya. He did not need to slam down into the ground around here, especially with all the zombies that would be attracted from the noise of him slamming into the ground. Not only that, but Naruto knew that even his insane regeneration would be hard-pressed with a fall from this height. Anyways, Naruto continued training to increase his speed, strength, and control of his chakra demonic power when he stopped mid-swing. His eyes widening as he was suddenly hit with a large wave of negative emotions ranging from greed, anger, envy, with the most prominent being unrestrained lust. Naruto had figured that if he ever gained his chakra back, that he would regain his ability to sense negative emotions. However, he wasn't expecting for it to activate so suddenly or for there to be such a large amount of negative emotions waiting to slam into him when it did. The sudden sensing of negative emotions caused Naruto to lose his focus and slip off the wall. Luckily, Naruto's reflexes never dulled as the moment he slipped off the building, one of his hands shot out and grabbed the top of the building, stopping his fall. Naruto hung off the building for a second before he shook his head and quickly pulled himself up. What the hell? Naruto mentally shouted, I've never felt negative emotions as strong as this before. What could be causing this? Closing his eyes, Naruto focused his senses as he began calming down to pinpoint the source or sources of all the negative emotions. As he focused his senses, the negative emotions he was feeling were beginning to reduce so that he didn't feel them all at once and was now focusing. He kept focusing, further and further, as the image in his mind became clear before his widened and he immediately made a clone to go do its job while he ran back inside the building. The reason? Naruto realized that the negative emotions he was feeling were not only coming from Shido and his group, but that there was someone who was entering Yuki's room who was radiating the most amount of lust. At the same time, while Naruto was training on the roof and having his brief overload of sensing negative emotions, Yuki was sleeping with a small, soft smile on her lips as she dreamed of Naruto. From his kind and protective nature to his personality and good looks. Near rape scene ahead. If you are someone who does not want to see this or are sensitive about this type of subject, or if it brings up any bad memories or something, or if you are underage, I would suggest immediately skipping over this next part until you reach the next bold TXT. As Yuki slept, she was unaware of the person who had just entered her room and was making their way towards her. They silently moved across the room, getting closer and closer to where Yuki was. The person wiped their mouth as they were drooling from imagining the things they were planning to do to Yuki. Unfortunately, the person lost focus and ended up knocking over a chair which hit the floor with a crash, which caused Yuki to jump awake at the sound. Yuki saw the person and was about to scream until the person lunged and covered her mouth with one hand and pinning her wrists above her head with the other. Yuki struggled against the person as her eyes widened in fear before one of her feet caught the curtains to the window and tore them down. This caused the moonlight to pour into the room, allowing Yuki to see who it was, and her eyes widened even further, while even more fear entered her eyes as she saw Tsunoda was the one who was currently pinning her down. Yuki then began to struggle more, which caused Tsunoda to growl as he tightened his grip on Yuki, getting her to whimper as he growled out, "Stop struggling, bitch." Yuki froze up a bit while she still looked at Tsunoda with wide eyes full of fear and terror. Tsunoda then growled, "Do you have any idea the amount of trouble your little boyfriend Uzumaki got me in?" Normally, Yuki would have blushed at basically being called Naruto's girlfriend, but given her current situation, she didn't. Tsunoda then continued his rant, "The plan was so simple. All of us were going to take you and your friend to an alley, have our way with you, and then you would have been so broken you would willingly look for our cocks. But then our plan was stopped when Uzumaki came and saved you." Tsunoda's grip tightened some more, causing Yuki to whimper and squirm some more as he growled out, "After Uzumaki saved the two of you, I lost any respect the other members of my gang had for me. They ignored me and completely left alone, kicking me out of the gang." Tsunoda then looked down at Yuki with insanity and lust as he said, "But now, I have you right where I want you, alone, in a room, and away from the others. Not even that boyfriend of yours is here to stop me from enjoying myself." Tsunoda then removed his hand from her mouth, allowing Yuki to realize that he had taped her mouth and wrists before he began roughly groping Yuki's breasts, getting her to flinch and groan from the pain of having her breasts roughly groped. Tsunoda then pulled her tank top down, causing her breasts to pop out since she hadn't put her bra on, since she gets uncomfortable when wearing a bra to bed. Tsunoda continued groping her breast while also twisting her nipple before he took in her other nipple into his mouth. Yuki involuntarily moaned, unused to having her breasts groped and suckled, but she was still shaking her head and squirming. Yuki tried screaming through the tape, hoping that someone, somehow, would hear her in her time of need. Tsunoda then reached down with his other hand and began trying to pull off Yuki's shorts and panties, with Yuki fighting against him in order to keep her clothes on. However, Tsunoda eventually managed to get her shorts off, but it was at that moment that Yuki kicked him in the face, knocking him back before she scrambled to her feet. Running towards the door, Yuki attempted to open the door, but she was suddenly grabbed and thrown to the floor, causing her to lose her breath and have a hard time breathing due to the tape on her mouth. Looking up, Yuki began rapidly crawling back as she saw Tsunoda glaring and snarling at her with a bloody mouth as Yuki had kicked his chin. Tsunoda lunged at her and began fighting to grab her before he managed to get a grip and flipped her over, so was lying on her stomach while he lifted her ass in the air. Yuki then began hearing rustling and looked to see Tsunoda undoing his belt and pants. Yuki's eyes widened in fear before she began struggling harder and tried moving away. However, Tsunoda kept his grip on her hips, holding her in place. "Oh no, you don't. You're going to stay right here and take it like the bitch you are." Tsunoda snarled out as he finished undoing his pants and pulled his erect member out. Yuki continued struggling as she felt Tsunoda move closer and place his member against her pussy. Yuki shut her eyes, preparing herself for the pain that was coming as she thought, "Naruto-kun, help me." It was at this time that she and Tsunoda heard the door suddenly break apart with a loud crash. Near rape scene ND. Both Tsunoda and Yuki turned to look at the door, but Tsunoda was kicked in the head, hard, knocking him into the wall and away from Yuki. Yuki looked up and saw her friend, savior and bodyguard since she first met him. "Naruto-kun." Yuki thought with tears of joy slowly building in her eyes. She saw him standing over her with a glare on his face as he stared at Tsunoda before he glanced down towards her. Yuki then remembered her current state of dress due to Tsunoda, and she couldn't help but blush in embarrassment and look away from him as she thought, "I'm glad he's here, but this is so embarrassing. He probably doesn't even want to do anything with me anymore because I couldn't even defend myself." Yuki was getting depressed, believing that Naruto wouldn't like her anymore for being unable to defend herself, but she blinked in surprise when she felt herself being covered and lifted into a sitting position. Looking down, Yuki saw that she had been covered by her blanket before looking up with a surprised look in her eye when she saw Naruto also placing her shorts and panties in the blanket with her. Naruto, seeing her expression, simply smiled as he undid the tape on her wrists and mouth and said, "Don't worry, I didn't look while you were exposed. Before I deal with him, let's get you to the bathroom so you can have some privacy to put your clothes back on." Yuki nodded, still too shaken up to properly speak, as she felt Naruto gently help her up and walk her to the bathroom while making sure the blanket stayed wrapped around her. Once she was inside, Naruto closed the door behind her before he stabbed rebellion into the ground in front of the door while channeling a large amount of chakra into it. Naruto then turned back to the still exposed Tsunoda with his glare returning full force, unaware that his eyes were flashing red again. Naruto began clenching his fists while stalking towards Tsunoda, who had finally managed to stand back up and looked to see Naruto standing between him and his Yuki. "What the hell do you think you're doing, huh?" Tsunoda shouted, furious that someone was preventing him from claiming the one he wants, as he threw a punch at Naruto. Naruto didn't answer as he quickly dodged a punch before grabbing Tsunoda by the face and slamming the back of his head into the wall. However, Naruto, in his moment of anger, forgot about how much stronger he was now that he was a half-devil, and when he slammed Tsunoda's head against the wall, he embedded Tsunoda's head in the wall while Tsunoda was knocked unconscious. Seeing Tsunoda was unconscious, Naruto walked over to the bathroom and placed his sword on his back before knocking on the door and asking, "Yuki-chan, are you decent?" Hearing a soft yes, Naruto slowly opened the door and looked inside to try and see where Yuki was. He saw the blanket on the ground, but he didn't know where Yuki was until he heard sniffling coming from the bathtub. Walking over to the bathtub, he opened the curtains and found Yuki laying in the tub, curled up while she hugged her knees to her chest. He saw that she was shaking and could tell that the events of the last half hour had finally set in. Naruto slowly moved towards her before he sat on the edge of the tub while putting his sword on the floor and softly asked, "Yuki, are you okay?" Yuki flinched at first, but when she heard Naruto's voice, she began to relax and looked at him with fear-filled eyes as she broke down crying before she tightly wrapped her arms around him. Naruto wasn't surprised by her reaction as he knew that he had been even a second slower, Yuki would have forcefully lost her virginity had Tsunoda forced himself inside of her. Naruto would have said something, but it was at this moment that he heard the sound of footsteps. At first, he thought Tsunoda had woken up and was prepared to knock him unconscious again, but then he realized that more than one person was making the sound. Naruto then realized that everyone had woken up and were currently heading towards Yuki's room. "What happened here?" Naruto heard Saya's voice ask from the hallway. He could tell they were just arriving at Yuki's door and were about to enter the room where they would find the still exposed and unconscious Tsunoda. Looking back at Yuki, he gently asked, "Do you think you've recovered enough to talk to the others? And you don't have to force yourself if you're not." Yuki shook her head, as she still couldn't talk right now, and Naruto nodded his head in understanding. Carefully grabbing his sword, Naruto replaced it on his back while picking up Yuki and moving out of the bathroom. As Naruto slowly moved out of the bathroom, he came across everyone else who had finally entered the room and saw Tsunoda in the wall. "Naruto-kun, what happened here?" Kyoko asked as everyone had seen the destroyed door and were worried about Yuki. Everyone looked at Naruto as he said, "Tsunoda snuck into Yuki-chan's room and attempted to rape her when he was sure everyone was asleep." It seemed that his obsession with Yuki-chan caused him to snap, especially since she would deny his advances in the past, so he decided to take matters into his own hands. However, it seems he woke her up before making it to her, as seen by the evident struggle that took place on the bed and through the room. Naruto was informing everyone of what he felt while he was rushing down, though he couldn't tell them that he sensed what was happening. He didn't trust Shido's group to not try anything if he revealed his abilities. It was bad enough that Trish revealed one of her powers, he did not want to reveal his abilities in front of Shido, just for the dick to twist his words. Naruto then continued to inform everyone of what happened. "I heard the sound of the struggle since I was still awake and my room was nearby. I wanted to see if anything was wrong only to find the door was locked. Hearing the commotion inside, I broke the door down, finding Tsunoda about to penetrate Yuki-chan. Rushing forward, I kicked Tsunoda away from the bound Yuki, handed her clothes to her while covering her, before unbinding her and leading her to the bathroom for some privacy. After leading her to the bathroom, I came back and proceeded to slam Tsunoda into the wall, but I guess I don't know my own strength since I put him partially into the wall." Everyone looked back at the wall, since Tsunoda had been removed and covered, and saw a pretty deep indentation where Tsunoda had been. They also saw bits of blood from Tsunoda getting his head cut from hitting the wall. Everyone was shocked at Naruto's strength, though given he wields the sword that he does with ease, it was understandable. Shido suddenly stepped forward while clearing his throat, gaining everyone's attention as he said, "That's quite an interesting story, Naruto-san, but how do we know you're telling the truth?" This got a reaction out of everyone, with the girls, Takashi, and Kauta being furious at Shido for accusing their friend, while Shido's cult simply looked smug as they watched, believing Naruto would back down. Naruto, however, reacted in a manner that was entirely different from what everyone expected. Naruto, with shadowed eyes, calmly walked up to Shido before lifting his head and staring Shido in the eye. It was then that everyone noticed Naruto's normally cerulean blue eyes had turned into a burning crimson with slit pupils and were staring at Shido with a look they had never seen come from Naruto before. It was a look of complete and utter disgust. The same look one would give to what they would deem the lowest piece of trash and filth. It also didn't help that Naruto was no longer slouching, so he stood at his full height, which was a few inches taller than Shido, making the man have to look up to look Naruto in the eye. "You mean besides the fact that Tsunoda had his pants down when you came in?" Naruto said with a cold tone, "How about the fact that Yuki is displaying the signs of someone who was nearly raped? Or the fact that she is currently unable to meet the eyes of anyone? So if the best you can do is just try and cause distrust amongst all of us to try and nominate yourself as some all-knowing leader, then I suggest you stay the hell from all of us." Looking at everyone who wasn't a part of Shido's cult, he said, "Come on, Trish and I will drive while the rest of you get some sleep. We're gonna leave them here since they can't seem to take their heads out of their asses." With that, Naruto led Yuki out of the room, while the others, minus Shido and his group, began to leave so they can get their stuff. Once outside, they all saw that there was now a second van next to Naruto's for them to get in. "Wait right there." Turning around, they all saw Shido standing there with a smirk as he said, "You may all leave, but you'll have to leave Ms. Marikawa here, since we will still need a medic. Plus, she took a vow to never abandon people in need, and it seems that all of you are doing fine. So leave her here and the rest of you can go." This made everyone mad, with Shizuka also shivering in fear when she and everyone else saw the look of lust on Shido's face. But it didn't last long when Naruto appeared in front of Shido with rebellion against the man's throat, pushing it against the skin, making a slight cut which terrified the man. "No, she's not going with you. She is going to be leaving with us and that is final," Naruto said while glaring at Shido with his still red eyes. "You're a teacher, so you should be fine taking care of yourself and your little cult back there. So, we're leaving, and if you try to make a demand of us again, I'll behead you myself before doing the same to your cult." This terrified Shido as he exclaimed, "You can't do that. That's murder." Naruto growled a bit before pushing rebellion a little deeper into Shido's neck as he yelled, "Look around. Do you think people would survive in this world if they always followed the rules? Right now, people are out there, killing, raping, and stealing for a chance to survive, so what are a few more deaths? It certainly wouldn't bother me." In the end, Shido was shivering in fear while the others in the vans were smiling and nodding in pride at Naruto's words. Though they were also a little worried and concerned with how easy he talked about killing Shido and his group. As if he had done it all his life and killing Shido would have been as easy as breathing. However, they knew that right now wasn't the time and that they would ask at a later time, hopefully when everyone has had a chance to cool off. With that, Naruto backed up and went to his van to drive, while Trish went to the other van that his clone had obtained, not that anyone but him was aware of that fact, so that she could drive that one. So, with everyone now strapped in, they all began to leave, not even looking back as Shido glared at the two vans. However, if they had, they would have noticed Shido's eyes changing to an almost blank look that resembled goat eyes. This isn't over, son of Sparta, Shido thought as a slight mist began gathering around his body, while the floor slowly began being covered in ice. I will get those women eventually, and I will make you watch as I take them and force them into submission before finally killing you. With that, Shido calmed down, making the mist surrounding him dissipate, and his eyes turned back to normal before heading back inside the building. The end. Thanks for watching, also remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.